Hi, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to week 4, Inviting Optimism in our book club read, Living the Artist's Way, An Intuitive Path to Greater Creativity by Julia Cameron. So I'm really excited. I read this and took some notes and did my usual highlighting everywhere of all the things that I wanted to share. And I think that this chapter is really beautiful after following the last chapter, Inviting Calm, because there is a moment to move forward in optimism. And I love the flow of these chapters. So chapter 1 was inviting grounding. Chapter 2, inviting strength. Chapter 3 was inviting calm. Chapter 4, the one we're on right now, inviting optimism. And then we have week 5, inviting stamina, and week 6, inviting commitment. So if you want to follow along with us in this book club journey, please check out my playlist on YouTube where you can watch all the videos. You can also watch the book I did last year or 2 years ago called It's Never Too Late to Create Again. I think that's what that one was called, where I'm just looking on my bookshelf. It's Never Too Late to Begin Again. That's what it is, by Julia Cameron. So I also did her Artist's Way one years ago, but I didn't. It's not on there anymore. But these two playlists will be on YouTube, so you can check that out. And it's just been really fun. And so what we're doing is we're going into my free school community and having a discussion on the posts after we've been doing this. So as we know, each of her books have a main foundational piece, and that is 3 pages of morning writing every morning, unscripted, uncensored, just free writing, free flowing. And then this book, each one is a little bit different. So this one has the normal morning pages of 3 unscripted, just go for it, but pages. And then this one has solo walks once or twice a week with yourself. No headphones, no pets, no friends, just you, time to get regrounded, to really think, to really embody the whole process. And then there is a weekly solo date, which you can go anywhere that excites you, sparks creativity, gets things flowing. Maybe it's a bakery, maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's a thrift store, maybe it's a luxury store, maybe it's a hike in the forest, maybe it's a long drive by yourself in a car. Whatever that is okay. It's whatever you want it to be. That's the beauty of it. And it's time to think and focus and get more in line with things that you love, putting yourself in environments that spark all of this excitement within yourself. So things that you enjoy, and a fresh change of scenery also really helps. Then the last one is we've done the journaling, the walk, the solo date, and then there's writing for guidance. So it's a little bit of extra where you can write in a different journal, just tapping into your intuition, writing to God, the universe, whatever your beliefs are, and writing for guidance, writing with questions, coming for answers, and getting focused help on that. And so that's what the main book is. If you want to check out the last 3 sessions and discussions, you can join our community and come on in and ask questions. So I'm excited. So let's get going on inviting optimism. You don't have to have the book. I usually do a little summary of my favorite parts of the chapter, and then I read out the journaling prompts and the guidance prompts that come along with it, and so you can join in those at any time. So like I said, you don't need anything to join. You just need you and the willingness to do the journaling. So week 4, inviting optimism. So this week, you will use guidance to consciously invite optimism into your life. You will explore areas where you can find self-forgiveness and a sense of hope. By this point in the course, guidance is likely coming more and more easily to you. It's my hope that you are experiencing its steadiness and coming to trust and rely on it. You will also try using guidance in relation to your creative projects, as artists have done for centuries. Counting your positives, the things you did right, all of this helps to build a grounded and optimistic sense of self. You are not powerless. You have many small choice points in your day, such as I ate well today, or I walked today, or whatever that is. She focuses on using your strengths in this chapter and noticing those small things that you did right. And I think that's really beautiful. So each of these chapters is divided into topics. So the first topic is guided to self-forgiveness. Sometimes I read a lot out of the book, so other times I don't, but today I felt like I want to read you this certain part of this part. So it says, I had spent the afternoon visiting a book club, and the visit had proved a difficult one. The club was reported to be 30 people, all working through my book, The Artist's Way. This is Julia speaking. When she arrived on Zoom, there was a mere handful of people. We visited for an hour with the questions from the participants few and far between. The moderator stepped into the void with questions that were far-fetched from the book. I answered these scattered questions as well as I was able, hoping to be helpful. I found myself being gentle with the little group, hoping to coax them forward. The visit ended on a positive note, and I found myself suddenly spiraling downward. What didn't I say? And my inner critic demanded, and there was a list of could-haves and should-haves. I tried in vain to think of what I might have done right. Instead, I encountered this list of negatives. I wasn't smart, humorous, charismatic. Instead, what was I? The answer came zooming in from the depths. Not good enough. So she told her friend all about this named Emma. Emma was part of this book club and she had joined in. And she said, Julia, you did fine. You said a lot of gentle, encouraging things. I even wrote some of them down. And Emma said that she was actually astonished about all of how inspirational Julia was. And sometimes she realized that she saw the negative in this. She saw all the things she thought she did wrong. She realized her ego felt out of joint. She says, my ego demanded of me that I be perfect. By perfect, I mean brilliant. But brilliant was not what I was called for. Useful was. And so then she asks that you write for guidance. So this is where we're going to do the first part. Fill in the following. I wish I could be more gentle with myself about blank. I can't seem to forgive myself for blank. How can I be more gentle with myself? How can I have more self-forgiveness? And those are the questions for this little section. And so she's really tapping into the whole part of that we're living in this world of perfectionism and thinking that we have to be brilliant all the time and that we're not good enough the way that we are. And I think that that was a really important thing to notice. Even somebody so profound as Julia Cameron, who has wrote over 30 books, still feels insecure and not enough in those times. And so I think if we can all recognize that part in us as well that feels like that. And so that was really neat about the chapters about optimism, about how to see this stuff in a different light. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in that, what we did wrong or what wasn't good enough moment, right? There's a wonderful quote from Anne Frank that says, how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. I love the little quotes in this so much. The next part about writing for guidance is, she says, we all have hope. One of the quickest ways to tune into our own hope and its power is to turn to this tool. Take a pen in hand and write as quickly as you can and fill in the following. Number the page from 1 to 10 and write from 1 to 10, I hope, I hope, I hope, all the way from 1 to 10, your same thing, and fill that in. So what do you hope for? Maintaining optimism is huge. Maintaining hope is huge. For those of you who know my personal story, my whole future and life revolves around focusing on hope, maintaining hope, and not giving up. And so I'm very optimistic and always optimistic about my future. And I think that we get lost in this cycle of criticizing ourselves internally, and until we start noticing that we're doing it, we can reflect on what's actually going on here. And the next little section is called surrendering control. Okay, this part is where she talks about, and I can super relate to this, is all of a sudden she lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The skies are starting to turn orange. A big forest fire is coming her way. And I know that feeling of when the fire is coming and how the sky turns a different color and how it feels eerie and creepy, and things almost feel like when it gets really smoky, if you've ever been in a forest fire, it feels like apocalyptic almost. And she's like, I hate this feeling and I have no control over any of this. And this next section is all about surrendering control and controlling what we can control and letting go of the rest and noticing things. So for me, I notice that there's a lot of things that I can control. I can control what I say, how I react, what I put in my mouth, how I treat people. I can control what I do with my time, most of all. Some stuff just pops up, that's life, but everybody has that. But in general, I can control a lot of things. And then there's a whole nother part of the world and our life that we can't control. And there is a lot of surrendering in life involved. Surrendering at a really light level and a really deep level. And she talks about waking up and the fire is getting kind of feeling gray and heavy, and it's continuing to rage in the mountains, and it's getting this, now it's getting windy and it's blowing it in. And this part sounds so beautiful to me with her words, the way she writes. And I'll just read it to you. It says, another day, gray and heavy, the fire is continuing saga. The mountains are shadows of themselves. Smoke-laden winds blot out their peaks. Rain threatens but doesn't fall. The fire is still not contained. My pinyon tree is etched dark green against the glowing gray sky. Tiny birds shelter in its arms, and I hear no bird song. Twilight descends on the mountains as one more shade of gray. The sunset is muted. And it goes on to just, the way she writes is so beautiful, and you can visualize everything so vividly because it's so colorful in her words. And I just love this chapter. I felt that it was very relatable. And the fire carries on, and she just focuses on surrender. And so she writes in her book and asks us to write for guidance. Fill in the following. An area in my life where I have no control is blank. I wish that blank. I am afraid that blank. Now write out the following questions and listen to guidance. And what do you hear? How can I accept my lack of control? How can I turn the situation over to a higher power? And what action can I take now? So those are some really good questions to write on and journal on. And then she just talks about relying on guidance. She has a friend who says that he likes to take long bike rides to clear his mind. That's how he focuses on a sense of control. And he gets when he rides his bike, he gets a sense of direction and relies on the guidance that he hears. And he lives in Michigan, and he says, here in Michigan, I have the time and space to create, but I miss the company of other artists. They are available to me on Zoom, but it's not the same. It's a mixed bag. And this isolation gives me space to work, but I'd have to say it's lonely. And with daily writing pages and his solitary bike rides, he, in his own witness, he sums it up as, I trust the guidance because I have to. So everybody's in a different situation. We're all feeling different at different times and different seasons of our life. And I think it's neat to honor that. She says that she's been teaching for 4 decades since she was 32 years old. Now Julia's 72, and she has long years of practice behind her. Every class she does is individual. Every class requires prayer. And she asks to be guided in what and how she teaches before rooms of people listening, always for the hunch or intuition on how to proceed. She loves to do journaling before a class. She asks for love and service and humor and wisdom and, yes, charisma. So Today she was writing for guidance before a class and she was told, open the class with poetry and a song. Because I am a poet and I am a composer. But it wouldn't have occurred to me to bring my poetry and music into play. This is one of the first times she's kind of changed it up and changed her rhythm. And so she opened up this Zoom class with a poem, Why We Write. And it felt like stepping out from behind her teaching persona and revealing herself as the artist, the real artist who wrote the artist's way. And so I think this is beautiful because creativity does take courage, and thinking of following our guidance allows us to bring fresh and new things in. And I love that. So she found herself teaching boldly and sharing stories from her own writing experience. She became vulnerable. I found myself telling the class after 40 books that I still suffer from the feeling of being an imposter, not a real writer, whatever that means. I told them about my inner critic, who I call Nigel. Nigel is a British interior decorator, and nothing that I write meets his lofty standards. I think this is so funny. I've been writing since I was 18, and Nigel's naysaying has accompanied me every step of the way. Thank you for sharing, Nigel. I tell him all the time. And this is so interesting. Have you ever created some sort of persona around your inner critic? Because that's something interesting to do. I'd love to hear more about it. Tell me in the chat, in the comments, or in the discussion. Do you have a persona for your inner critic? And I'm wondering if creating a persona for that inner critic would be a really great idea, because you could say, call the person a name and be like, no, I'm good right now, or thanks for the input, but I'm going for it anyway, or whatever you can come up with in the moment that you need to say to your critic, like, not now. Is that, or you could question your critic with a name, like, is that actually true? Is that actually true? Is that truth for me or not? And I think maybe that would be really interesting. So I'd love to know if you guys do that or want to do that. It sounds like it would be a really beautiful way of separating the critic from you, the mind from the soul, if you will, because then you can see the critic as over here and the soul separate, because the soul knows what it wants. The soul has needs in alignment and is full of purpose and calling and beauty, and the inner critic is the mind over here that likes to pull us back to our path, that likes to show us that negative failures that we've had and compare us to them and say, well, you weren't able to do that then. What makes you think you can do it now, or whatever? So I think that would be super interesting. And the guidance for this area is fill in the following. An area of my life where I must rely on guidance is a time when my guidance proved to be reliable was. And I suspect I can trust my guidance on this issue because. And that is the majority of this book. There is another section called Guidance and Art, where she says, I have been working in earnest 2.5 decades, and in that time my guidance and art have become the way that I think and how I pray, how I make sense of the world. I'm listening for guidance every step of the way. And the final questions are, what creative project are you working on? And have you tried asking for guidance about it? So I thought that was a really beautiful, light, short chapter that was an super easy read. And I hope you enjoy this little recap summary video. I want to hear your feelings on surrendering and the inner critic and things like that in the discussion post that I'm going to put in my school group. And if not, join the link below. And I hope you guys have a fabulous day. I look forward to next week, where I'm sharing about inviting stamina as chapter 5. And there's only 6 chapters in the book, so there'll only be one more after that. It's very short. And what your experience is in your longhand journaling. Are you able to be keeping up? Or are you doing it your own way? Whatever you do is totally fine. I feel like any journaling is a bonus. Any kind of pen to paper processing your thoughts is beautiful and so purposeful and so enlightening and reflective of what's going on the inside. So I look forward to seeing you guys in week 5. Bye, everybody. See you next time.